Hello everybody, I am Teodora Tompe and we are here to talk about post-pandemic consumer behavior, and I will introduce the speakers right now. Gerke Witteveen, CFO of NN Romania. Good morning, thank you so much for being here. Gerard Koolen, Group Managing Partner at Lugera, and Victor Iancu, Associate Partner KPMG Romania. Welcome, thank you so much for being here. First of all, a question for all of you, and maybe you should answer in the meantime. You can think about what we will talk about later. What is consumer behavior and why it is so important to talk about it right now?
For us, consumer behavior means how job seekers in Romania are behaving. And for us that is crucial because we want to know, we want to understand them, we want to know what drives them, so that we can serve job seekers better in today's labor market.
Victor Iancu, how it's for you? How do you feel consumer behavior?
Well, consumer behavior is basically, for us, everything behind the psychological patterns of interaction for a client with their product, services, their suppliers. Patterns that are have changed quite a lot recently and are in continuous change.
And Mr. Witteveen?
Yeah, I think consumer behavior is indeed it's more than just what you see of your customer. So when he buys your product or what he does, it's for instance, how does he look for your product in the market, or how does he compare you to other products? What are the connections he or she makes? So consumer behavior, more and more people have more and more information nowadays. And this changes consumer behavior. Because in the end, it's how a customer, a potential customer, takes the information, all the information out there, and what then makes him decide or not to decide to engage with a company, to buy a product, to get a service from a company. So it's very much about how the consumer processes the information. And for companies, it's important to understand that, because in the end, your consumer, okay, if you buy a holiday, yeah, what do you see when you buy it? You don't see the experience. You will have that only later. So it's important as a company to understand really what the customer wants and offer him then, for instance, that holiday that he's really looking for. So it's actually what happens behind the psychology, and what happens behind the visible part. That's for me very much the consumer behavior.
Because you talked about changes, what happened with this behavior? How was this before pandemic, and how was the consumer behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how it looks like nowadays?
For us, I'm in the field of insurance, which is about covering the risks of people. So for us, COVID was a very interesting period because people became much more aware of some of the risks they have. And this is not only the risk of health, which relates to health insurance, but also the risk of, your income, your job, how your work is, your risk of how you run your life. So actually what we've seen is that people related to the industry I work in is that people have become much more risk aware, much more understanding of maybe how they need to plan their life. So people have become more deliberate around it. And this was a big change as it relates to my company and the products, the services we're offering.
Yes, a lot changed, including what my colleague here was saying. Interestingly, we operate the most comprehensive study of the Romanian market targeted at understanding consumer behavior, the Customer Experience Excellence Report. And the changes indeed were dramatic changes that happened at the level of values, including values, people being more aware of the risks indeed, but at the same time, people understanding that maybe, what was previously a priority is not anymore. People understanding now that their share of wallet in terms of, buying products and services should be more carefully assessed, and that's something that we see this year as well. We just published the results. The value for money component of every interaction customers have today is even more important than last year, and of course before the pandemic. And of course, the time and effort aspects of customer interaction. That's a very interesting. Yes, changed a lot. Nobody has time now to, queue, read 30-page contracts. Basically, people expect that their interaction with the brands they purchase or the services they purchase be swift and under this value for money attribute, which is very interesting. Yeah.
We operate in 12 countries, and before COVID, we always tried to encourage home office, so remote working. So in Holland, we had our entire team in home offices, and we were not able in Romania to motivate people to use home office. Then COVID came, everybody stayed home, and now the big difference is nobody wants to come back anymore to the office. So for us, that is by far the biggest change we had. So we have 4 office floors, 2 are now completely empty. People stay at home.
Really?
Right, yeah.
Victor Iancu, because you talked about companies and the behavior, what industries are most affected by this behavior that changed during the last 3 years, let's say 3 years?
Well, I don't think there's an industry that was not affected, and we should, I guess, split them into 2 because they were all affected, some positively, some not so much. I would say there are some industries where, and I'll give you just an example of an industry that didn't do much during the pandemics in order to actually, get closer to the customer, but just because of what happened, the perception of the clients influenced the way they looked at them. This is the couriers, the logistics companies bringing stuff to our doors. Well, basically in 2020, they received the highest scores, not because they've done something, extraordinary, but because they basically positioned themselves in the value chain of various other industries, for instance, retailers, and consumers perceived them, okay, these are the people that protect me from the risks of me getting out, getting the disease, protecting my family, etc., etc. So basically, they capitalized a lot on this type of human interaction, because remember, it was one of the few interactions we had at that point in time. So
during the pandemic, first year.
So this is an example of an industry that, okay, they've invested a lot in digitalization. They've invested, in their car parks, etc., etc. But essentially, nothing really changed dramatically. But from a consumer perception, there was a huge factor in terms of, okay, these people are protecting me from me getting, exposed to.
But it was an opportunity for them.
It was an opportunity, and some of them capitalized a lot on this, of course. Now, what we saw, for instance, in 2020, a lot of companies that had already invested in digital pathways to ensure a consumer relationship, they basically capitalized on those investments, and I'm referring here especially to the financial sector. Like a few banks were already digitized. In the pandemic, they just cashed in. Now, during the year 2020, what we saw is that business continuity was a problem for many organizations that did not have these digital channels, digital pathways to ensure business continuity. And those were the businesses that were most affected. And this is across sector. I could not say, banking was also affected, but others as well. So it was an issue across the sectors.
Very interesting. Mr. Koolen, do you notice a significant difference in how job seekers behave post-COVID time?
The biggest difference, what we see, is the explosive growth of what we call passive job seekers. So there has been a big tendency that many people now are passively looking for jobs. So they are constantly benchmarking their salary and their jobs, and they are ready and willing to move the moment they find the job they would really like to have. So that is a big difference. On the other hand, what you also see is that in uncertain times, people think twice before they would like to change for a job. But still, people are ready to move, but they are extremely critical towards the new job they would apply for. But also due to technology, the passive job seekers are growing, and that is because of LinkedIn, because of other online tools, so that people can have a marvelous overview of all the jobs available to them. So that is what we see now. There is a huge, hidden number of, let's say, job seekers.
Mr. Witteveen, how vulnerable are Romanians to unforeseen events that can impact, of course, their future, their economic future, because it's about economic?
Traditionally, and here we can go back much longer than COVID, Romanian society has been quite vulnerable to this. UNSAR, the Association of Insurers, did a study in which they calculate something they call the protection gap, which basically means if as a family you lose your income, what is the gap in money that you would need to get to keep your standard of living? On the level of Romanian society, this is about 600 billion RON, which is about 100k RON per family. And this is coming from a savings culture in Romania, which is not very well developed. Compared to, let's say, 2008 financial crisis, what is better is that Romanians generally
financial education.
Yeah, but generally people have taken on less debt. In 2008, the problem was that a lot of people had a lot of debts, and that created a lot of trouble. So now the debts are generally smaller, even if they have been increasing somewhat in the past years, but still there are very few savings. You also see that the traditional safety nets, and this is not only true for Romania, but in Romania it's even stronger than in other countries, which is the state, finds it more difficult to pick up the bill because of aging. In Romania, even more affected also by emigration, of course. Family structures or near friends and family or the village, where maybe previous generation relied on. Nowadays with urbanization, it's less and less. So the traditional safety nets are weakening. The savings culture is not yet there, which means that a lot of families are really at risk when they lose their income to not be able to maintain their standard of living. And this is really, so this vulnerability, when you look at it on the level of the EU, Romania has 36% of the population basically at risk for this protection gap. And this is, I think, the second highest percentage in the EU.
It's huge.
It's huge.
For a country,
yeah.
For a country like Romania. Victor Iancu, what role plays digitalization in changing consumer behavior?
Of course, digitalization and the speed of digitalization has advanced quite rapidly since the pandemic. The pandemic was
a huge
factor.
Earlier, yes,
absolutely. Nowadays, I think most companies need to think about digitalization not only as a way to get to their customers as an alternative channel, because there will still be segments that would prefer physical channels, but the idea here is the organization that offers the seamless omni-channel experience to their customers. Those are based, at least on what we see in our studies, those are the champions of these days. So digitalization is obviously something very important, but at the same time, we need to understand that, and a lot of companies are doing it, digitalization for the sake of digitalization will not work, will not have the results, the business results that we search for. Why? Because digitalization and digital is a tool, is a means to an end. You start by understanding the customer, you start by understanding the client, as we were saying earlier, and this is basically looking at how your customer has changed, because you had some tools before, your customer has changed, how did they change, the customers, and then you apply digitalization. And you go even beyond that, because when you say, my customer, who is your customer? The customer behind is a very, very complex picture. The segments, the psychographics of the various segments will tell you that there is no one way to do things. Yeah? One size fits all approach does not work. And that is where companies need to invest, and digitalization is a good tool to actually tailor the experience of the various segments you identify and actually offer customized, individualized, personalized experiences. Personalization is one of the key factors today in winning this customer battle today.
And what is Romania's stage of maturity in terms of adapting to these changes? Because it's a start for us here in our country when we talk about digitalization.
Well, it's quite a polarized picture. We have digital champions at one end. Financial services, for instance, they've invested a lot in this area, and some of the champions are in that area. There are other areas with followers, organizations that realize they need to do something, and they're investing heavily in this. And there still are laggards, organizations that don't really understand the fact that unless you understand how your customers have changed, you cannot address their needs, their current needs. So basically they're working based on past scenarios, past tools, old marketing tools, pushing stuff to the market without understanding that, okay, something has changed and the one-size-fits-all approach simply doesn't work.
We need to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mr. Witteveen, because you talked about vulnerable people from Romania, what is the role of insurance in reducing financial vulnerabilities for Romanian families, and how has the interest in life and health insurance solution evolved in the past maybe 2 or 3 years? Because I think that everything is different now after COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, so connecting a few of the things we've been talking about. Indeed, the protection gap, the vulnerability of Romanian society, when the traditional safety net falls away, insurance is a natural industry to cover that gap. It's, if you look in countries where the insurance market has more history, more tradition, insurance companies are really an integral part of the financial structure of a society, and a big stabilizing factor in the economy, both by having actually quite a few investments in companies and having a certain flow of money in the economy, but specifically also to protect families for this vulnerability. And you see countries with a higher degree of insurance have generally a more stable economy. So the ups and downs of the overall economy are smaller. So it plays a big role. If you look at the interest, it's increased significantly. So indeed here the studies again from the Insurance Association, UNSAR, are that since the pandemic started, 3 in 10 people, so 30%, have said we are more interested in life insurance or insurance against unemployment than before.
This is a good thing.
Yes, 4 in 10 are more interested in health insurance. So like I said in the introduction also, this interest of the Romanians in taking care of their risks has become bigger. What we also see, you have to be aware that it's easy to talk about the consumer and Romanians overall. And here, going to what Victor was saying, also in insurance, it's completely different. If you're a young couple starting a family, having young kids, your needs for protection are completely different than when you're maybe 50 years old and you start thinking about how you want to retire and live your life after retirement. So your personal situation, if you're a very active person doing a lot of sports, or if you have a more urban lifestyle. So the importance for us as insurance companies also to offer those solutions to customers that really fit their needs is crucial to cover this vulnerability gap. So the protection gap is there, the interest is there, but like Victor is saying, the companies need to put the right products in the market. Not because they think it's a good product and they push it, but because it solves the customer need. And if we don't do that, and that goes for every industry, but okay, I take insurance as my industry, a lot of the potential doesn't get realized.
Mr. Koolen, what are the most significant barriers for recruitment at this moment, right now?
What Gerke says for employees and recruitment is that I think there is a gap between what employers offer their employees and what employees want, because what employees want is going to change. And you can see that, for example, due to COVID, People have seen how nice it is to work from home. And for example, people are reluctant to go back to the office. So in many sectors where companies insist of having their employees work in the office, they just don't get the talent anymore they would like to attract. Because what an employee wants is not anymore in line what the employer wants. So that is one big thing. The second thing for recruitment and employment is that because of COVID, people have become more aware, more conscious of how they would like to organize their life. And you see less and less that people would like to adjust to the working times which the company wants. They want to be more flexible. They want to spend more time with their families.
8 to 4 and
exactly. So it is exactly with pushing your products or selling. If you as an employer do not anymore comply with what your people want, you will have a recruitment and an employment problem. So that is what we now see, that there is a gap of what people want and what companies think they want.
The flexibility is the key.
Especially flexibility, but there are many other factors that people don't just look at salary.
Is the salary more important right now, the financial part?
Salary demands from job seekers.
It was always important.
It has always been important. And well, what we have seen is that before COVID, if you were on a sufficient salary level, salary was not important anymore. Then other things are important. For blue-collar operators who earn little, salary is major. But now we see that also white-collar and higher levels have extremely high salary demands. But what we also see in recruitment is that if the employer says, okay, we accept the salary you offer, still people don't come to the company because of many other factors. And that is like, does the job fit my lifestyle? Does the company fit my lifestyle? Is the company according to my values? Are they sustainable? Are they all inclusive? So now suddenly everything must be right for a job seeker in order to go to another company.
Mr. Witteveen, how are consumers navigating insurance options to find the best protection for their needs, and how have their expectations changed also during the last 3 years?
Well, I think here a lot of what Victor was saying about digitalization applies. That customers were used to go to an insurance agent or a broker, physically meet with someone, discuss,
there
buy
are
insurance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, the interesting part is, and again, you can take this in a global context, for more complicated insurance, such as life and health insurance, people still want to have that personal interaction. The moment they need to take the decision and put the signature on the contract and buy the product, they still very much value that personal interaction and that advice. But before that, when they want to, they start to orientate themselves on the internet. What health insurance means, what life insurance means, what offers there are from different companies. So what we actually see is that when our sales consultants now meet with clients, instead of them saying, yeah, I want an insurance to protect me, and what do you actually want? And it's a long journey together to find out, and a long discussion to find out. Now the potential customer comes with, I've already looked at it, I have a family, I have 2 kids, yes. I want the health insurance, I want to make sure it covers this, this, and this. So they are much more informed, they're much more prepared. There's this omni-channel element where they say, okay, I start maybe searching online, then I meet someone, then I maybe buy the insurance product. But then later on, when I have a claim or when something happens to me, I want to be able to do everything online, preferably in the mobile app. We have a mobile app called NN Direct where people can do claims, people can do payments,
very fast,
and then they don't want to wait for an appointment. They want to do it at 9 in the evening, have flexible hours. They want to do it maybe on Sunday morning when they wake up, put it in an app, submit it, no difficult paperwork, and then they expect, and this is also going to something Victor said, they expect it to be then resolved in the shortest possible time. So the patience of people to say, when I have an insured event, I don't want to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks for my money. So for us, when people put a claim into the mobile app, we make sure the money is in their account in 48 hours. And this is just also a bit going to what Gerard said about employees. This is what people now expect. So it isn't just the price of the product. It's what's the quality of the service? How flexible can I move between channels? All of this is becoming way more important, on top of obviously having a good product.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It is also a good thing and a bad thing when you talk about this, about digitalization, as Victor Iancu said. No?
Well,
there are opportunities, but also there are a lot of risks here about consumer behavior, that the consumer does not have patience anymore.
it is, but that's the way it is actually. I mean, and
We
this is
cannot
interesting.
change it.
You cannot change it. Obviously, you can educate your clients. You can set the correct expectation. And actually, that's a very important thing, the way we communicate and how we communicate, because we also have the role of setting the expectations correctly. This is very interesting because there are many companies, and this is actually quite a paradox. Great marketing departments actually have the role of raising the expectation of the customers. But then again, if the organization does not have the processes, the people, the systems to deliver against those expectations, you have a huge gap, which then translates into lack of trust, which obviously impacts the customer experience and their further behavior. But coming back to digital, I wanted to point out something very interesting that we see based on our research and working with our clients. Many organizations, I would say most of them, at least on this market, look at the mere transactional phase when looking at their customers, meaning I provide you the service or I give you the product, you pay me.
Yes.
That's it. Now, there are at least two phases which have a lot of opportunity in terms of innovation and getting customers' attention. One of them is where your customer is not yet your customers. It's someone out there looking for something with a need.
Potential customer, yes.
A potential customer with a need. And the question is, for any organization, where am I as an organization in the life of that person? To answer that question, you need to do the proper research and understanding that phase as well, right? And once you understand it, you can actually be in his or her life. And then there's the other phase where the customer is not your customer anymore. Yeah? They left you for whatever reason, they finalized the contract, whatever. What happens there? A lot of organizations don't look at that phase. And this is very interesting because a lot of customers leaving, they become either promoters or detractors of your organization. So it's a very interesting way of basically building loyalty and ensuring that your customer base grows. Yeah. And digitalization, there are digital tools today that provide, let's say, I will call them sensors, in order to track what's happening throughout the customer journey. And we see a lot of companies actually engaging this type of tools to understand customer behavior just in time. There are industries in e-commerce, for instance. There are tools that allow you to see how a certain segment grows or goes down in terms of purchase patterns. So you can just in time adjust your commercial policy or do something. So
almost real time, yes.
Almost in real time, and it's here. I mean, it's going on. It's happening, and this I'm pretty sure will contagiate, let's say, other industries as well, because consumers.
It can be a solution for companies to adapt today.
It can be, and this is very interesting because we see something that's called the fluidity of expectations, which means that if a customer sees or has a good experience, for instance, with NN, then they ask, okay, my energy utility provider, why can't they deliver the type of experience that my other provider delivered? So this fluidity of expectations is quite dangerous for companies that cannot adapt and will not adapt.
But it's hard for companies.
It's
yes.
interesting also that it's. What you point out is that it's, people compare their insurance company to their energy provider, to their bank, to their,
so are all the same. Yes.
So a lot of companies start to think of their competition in terms of people who do the same thing we do.
So it's hard for you as a company to adapt?
It's much harder. I mean, of course, there are people who use, people use emac for everything. Give an example here in Romania.
Yes.
I mean, they're pretty good at what they do. I mean, not everybody will always be happy, but you get your stuff quickly, you can do everything online, and that's just one example. Banks, insurers, telcos are also companies, telecom companies, who have long invested in digitalization. And not all of them are doing everything perfectly, but the customers are, what's the real difference between, paying the premium for my insurance or paying my mobile phone bill? There is no difference in essence. So if my telecom company can make it easy for me, my insurance company do as well. So you need to think of your competition in a way, or your expectation, the customer expectations are not defined by your own industry anymore. Yeah. They're defined by all the other apps, all the other websites, all the other modes of interactions that others provide.
And everything should be on the phone. Everything should be on an app from the phone.
We see that Romania is one of the most mobile companies compared to use of internet behind the PC and mobile. Romania has 93% of people do actively use their mobile phone for shopping, for interacting with the companies they work with, they engage with, which
also
is one of the highest percentages
yes,
in the EU.
Also in rural.
There is still a difference. This is also why omni-channel is important, that you have the urban and the rural society, and of course age differences. So the risk of digitalization is also exclusion of a certain group of society.
Of course.
Who is not so digitally educated. So I think companies also have a responsibility to, you can develop your digital processes, but I think you also need to make sure you don't leave the group of people behind who are maybe not. You can choose to focus only on the digital ones, but it would not be my personal preference.
Some are doing it. Some basically, this is very interesting. This is an interesting discussion. Talking with our clients and say, okay, what is the customer target? We want everyone. Do you? We want everyone, all segments. Okay, that's good. But in order for you to target every segment on the market, you're going to have the type of effort, huge effort in terms of time, resources, money, etc., etc. We see organizations that basically said, okay, we want only the digitally natives. And they're basically building their products and services towards that segment, becoming the champions for that specific target as a niche. Of course, if you're a big organization and you can afford to invest a lot to address the whole market, that's a different issue. But you need to choose carefully who you want to attract and retain.
Mr. Koolen, did you notice, you said a little bit earlier, but I want to develop a little bit more. Did you notice a significant difference in how job seekers behave post-COVID time, and what is their behavior and loyalty now? Maybe loyalty is the key here.
About loyalty, we see that job seekers and employees become more aware of themselves. So basically they become more loyal towards themselves, and they are less inclined to sacrifice things in their private life for the company.
So the private life is most important.
Private life or other interests. And what we see is that lots of companies before COVID demanded loyalty from their employees. That employees should be loyal to me, they should tell me and prove to me why we should hire them. And these days the conversation is a little bit different. It's not anymore that the employer will say, so job seeker, why should I hire you? Now the job seeker is asking, well, employer, why should I work for you? So the rules are becoming a bit different. And companies are not used, and they don't have, let's say, loyalty programs to keep their employees, that they show loyalty towards their employees. They have a loyalty program that employees must be loyal to them, but not the other way around. And there you see a big difference in employee satisfaction. Like a big example was at Google, that 20,000 people at Google threatened to leave Google. Why? Because they were not treated in the way they should be treated. And they were right, but the company didn't act on it because they thought, we are Google, everybody wants to work for us. And suddenly they found out that's not true. 20,000 people wanted to leave. So concerning loyalty, also if you look at airline companies and hotels, I am a loyal client, but they always screw me if I want to book at the latest moment, because then they increase my price. Yes. So I'm loyal to them, but they are not loyal to me. And now employees demand the company be loyal to them, so that if profits decline a bit, don't fire everybody. We have seen clients from us that when results went down, they fired 5,000 people in a small town. Now they need people again. Nobody wants to work anymore for them, just for a little cost saving. But the second thing what we see with even C-level candidates, so that is top management candidates, they don't show up at interviews. They suddenly don't respond anymore. Why? We don't know. They don't care anymore. So we also see a lot of job seekers that probably they were treated badly by recruitment agencies and the employers in the past, that they never got an answer, so they didn't get feedback. And now they say, well, guys, I don't care, I'm not interested anymore. And they just disappear. So also the ethics we see are turning around, and people are becoming more demanding, and they want everything the moment they want it, how they want it, and if not, then they'll take a hike.
I do expect, by the way, that we'll see what 2023 will bring, but
economic perspective.
If economic crisis hits and recession hits, things might settle down. I mean, this is a pendulum that swings, but I think that part of it is there to stay. And I think what you were mentioning before, also the alignment on values, is becoming very important. If you talk about loyalty of your employees, it's really about, obviously it's about the salary and the flexibility with your personal life, but a very important part is becoming these values. That how you
want to be important in
how you treat your employees, but also the role companies play in society. We run a number of charity programs in our company, and if I see how that relates, how our employees relate to that, and how that drives their pride of being part of NN. And the fact that we are now trying to raise over a couple of years 3 million euros to extend a hospital for children's cardiological surgery. That's something that your employees can really feel connected to, and they are engaged around that. And many companies do that, of course. But it used to be something companies did on the side. I start to see these kind of things becoming more and more important in feeling part of the place you work in, because it relates to the values you have as a person.
Yeah. And if people don't have that, you see a big phenomenon right now, which is called quiet quitting.
Yes.
And quiet quitting means that people don't like anymore.
They're not involved.
They're not anymore involved because they have different values than the company has. They don't leave the company, but they quit quietly, meaning they just do the minimum possible work in order not to get fired.
They act like they are quitting. They are going to quit.
Yeah, yes. And these are the passive job seekers, what I mentioned before. And these people will leave the moment that there is a new job which will meet all their requirements. And companies it is quite invisible, because they do their job, everything goes, but not good enough. And there is a big task for companies, like Gerke said, and we do charity, we give meaning to people in their job. And the company must be meaningful, the job must be meaningful. There should be fulfillment, and people should have a sense of advancement in the company and their job. And if that is missing, it's quiet quitting, and they will, in the end, leave your company.
Many organizations are starting to realize this, because the exact tools that we use, for instance, in customer experience design, also apply for employee experience and employee value proposition design, because it's human-centric and basically understanding the human behind the employee. It's not a statistical point in an Excel spreadsheet on the payroll and stuff like that. There are segments, there are types of employees. How do you address their needs? And it's kind of the same discussions, and we see organization actually starting to work.
But it is a real human resources crisis right now in the whole world, not only in Romania.
It's everywhere. There is a big shortage of talented people.
Yes.
And there is a big pressure on employees to retain them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and people and companies really have to act. And yeah, the most beautiful example is Google, just being able to lose 20,000 people.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see what happens maybe after 2020.
And
Sorry,
Gerke
please,
mentioned,
please, no problem.
imagine there will be a crisis, so there will be more unemployment. Still, we see that people become less dependent on the job and the salary. So people are anyhow more critical. Also, if they don't get the job they really want, then they accept the negative consequences of that. So they become more, I would say, more independent from employment
Yes.
and salary, although their salary demands are much higher than ever.
Yes, that's interesting also, but I think that's very risky to think this way.
Absolutely.
Or not?
I mean, we see this mostly with the younger generations, and always there's this question about, your appetite for risk. So if you're a young graduate with 2 years of experience, no family, basically living on a rent, I guess your appetite for risk is higher. But we started to see exactly this in more, let's say, mature professionals as well. And this is where the organization needs to design something that's tailored for those segments in order to retain them. Because obviously, as far as we understand now, to retain people, it's actually as important as attracting people, new talent. So it's a war talent out there. So yeah, we're betting on this redesigning or understanding the employee value proposition beyond the transactional part, which is getting paid at the end of the month, because there's a huge universe around the mere transactional part.
Absolutely.
Because we are almost done with this discussion, I want a few more questions for all of you. What measure can facilitate Romania's access to life and health insurance in the following years, of course?
Yeah. So I think it starts with financial education. As I said, the interest is there, but people are not yet, I would say, buying it. And gradually, especially apart from mandatory car insurance, but other insurances, people are not yet aware of what insurance can mean for them. So first of all, you're talking about financial education. Secondly, then, that's the point I already raised, is about the companies needing to make sure they have the right processes, the right products, the right service levels to meet the customer needs. This segmentation, make sure that depending on your life stage, depending on your family situation, depending on your whatever lifestyle, you have the right product. A third thing, which is quite common in many European states, to make sure insurance becomes a bigger part of the economy and stabilizes the economy, is basically fiscal facilities. So tax deductibility on insurance premiums, which is a quite common mean that has been used a lot around Europe to kind of give the industry a boost and bring it to a different level, and really make sure that a larger part of the population gets the protection they deserve. So this is another measure that, obviously it's not for the companies to decide. There are other people who decide on that. But that could really be a way to boost the market in a big way and provide much more protection to people who need it and make it affordable for them. So these would be a few of the things I would say.
Victor Iancu, as a conclusion, what are the characteristics of organization that can successfully adapt to market and to consumer right now?
Well, obviously, stating the obvious, being close to your customer does pay off. And beyond this, all the things that we all discussed here, understanding granularly what's going on in terms of customer dynamics, market dynamics. Some organizations by default have that possibility because they interact with their customers on a daily basis, thinking of retail, for instance. Those people have the opportunity to actually gather and grasp customer feedback on a daily basis. It's huge. The problem is a lot of organizations do not mandate their people to do this, to solve customer problems. The processes behind don't allow them to. So organizations need to mandate their people, to empower their people to actually act as sensors in the market with with those customers and actually feed an information loop within the organization. And so getting that feedback can be used in order to adapt just in time in order to do the proper things. Now, with organizations that don't have this luxury of being, in touch with constantly with their customers, obviously there are solutions, and many organizations are building platforms to allow, and this is the role of digital, to allow their customers to interact. They're building communities just for the purpose of getting contact with their customers and getting their feedback. So basically, staying in touch with your customer at that granular level, it's, I think, the challenge most organizations have to deal today. It's the new gold. The customer information is the gold today. So this is one of the main issues we need to look at.
Mr. Koolen, how pandemic experience boosted innovation, and what are the lessons we've learned, or maybe we should learn? Yeah. We still have time.
Well, totally. The recruitment industry was highly affected by COVID because we couldn't interview physically anymore our candidates. Our clients didn't want to meet with us anymore. So that accelerated the growth of many recruitment applications, which took the recruitment process from offline to online. And nowadays, most of the interviews we do are just online. And what we've seen in already more developed countries in terms of recruitment, like in England, that nearly 100% of the assessment of candidates is done online. People are hired in companies without that the company has ever met the person face to face. And that's a big step. Secondly, what we have seen is that job seekers, but also our clients, a job seeker wants the job the moment they think about, now I want a job, I want to do 2-3 clicks, I must have the job offers. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to apply, the application should be done as well. On the other hand, our clients, they expect that when they have now a vacancy, they need now candidates and not tomorrow. And we have built an application which we are testing now in Croatia, that if you would upload your job title and maybe your CV, yes, within 2 seconds, you have an overview of all the relevant jobs you would like. And with one click, you can apply to all those companies. And that is what a job seeker wants. And the next step, what is going to happen with the recruitment applications, which are now being developed also by us, is that before you want a job, you already get our job offers. So we can predict the moment that people would like to change from job. We can predict the moment that a company needs a bookkeeper, that the HR manager already will receive applicants for that job. Well, they don't have yet the vacancy. Predictive employment, predictive recruitment will be, I think, within 3 to 5 years, the rule.
And the final question for all of you. What are your company's long-term plans for growth and innovation? Mr. Witteveen, please.
Well, I think based on what I've said so far, we see the insurance market has huge room to grow in Romania. As I said, the interest is increasing. We're building the products. We're constantly, by the way, doing the market research to understand the customer needs, because they change indeed from year to year. Investing in the digital processes, and like Victor was saying, not only the shiny front end, but definitely also the processes behind it in your own operations to deliver on those promises. So I think there's a lot of innovation going into that. And we see great growth prospects for Romania, basically, because there is this real need for protection. And we want to help the people to take care of what matters most to them, their families, their homes, their health, their life. So we see a huge need, and we want to fill it. So we're very optimistic for the future.
Victor Iancu?
Yeah, well, we're a professional services firm, and we consider ourselves as being a drive of the economy, actually, because we're supporting a lot on many actors in the Romanian market on various stages, from audit, tax, and management consulting services. And we're we can have the pulse of the economy in any given time because given our contacts with so many organizations in so many fields, we can understand trends and we can, not necessarily predict, but we are there actually to support all the organizations on the Romanian market achieve their goals. And I think our value proposition, this is our strongest value proposition because we are, trusted partners on various levels, assisting organizations to actually grow, succeed, and implement the required changes, including on the customer side.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Koolen?
Yeah, Romania is a fabulous country with a wonderful bunch of people, creative, hardworking. And how we see the Romanian development is that we will make the labor market, so for job seekers, we will make available all the possible jobs they can, and for our clients to have plenty of people applying for their vacancies. So what we focus on is, and we invest millions in it, that we make the labor market a smooth environment where everybody can get the job they want and everybody can get the people they want. And so we make it, we strive for total transparency.
That's good. Thank you so much for your presence, for being here. Thank you also for watching this. Have a good day.